Welcome to the Marketing Revolution podcast. This is the underground movement of savage marketers from all over the world. We are not Fortune 500 companies. We are real entrepreneurs with real businesses that have one major thing in mind: to set goals and devour them daily. Because we understand that everyone wants to eat, but only savage marketers are willing to do the hunt. Now let's get this revolution started. Hey, what's up, everybody? John Hiley here with the Marketing Revolution podcast in the Marketing Savage Facebook group. Got a really good Savage Sunday here for you, Savage Sunday sermon. And if you guys have listened to some of the previous podcasts, it's kind of a interesting one here. I've got some notes, and this is specifically from Pastor Keith at our mastermind, which if you guys have been following for a little while now, you guys know that I actually just came back from Apex Executive Mastermind, which is kind of like a Ryan Stewman thing that he's got going on over there. And phenomenal time. And Ryan brought his pastor in as one of the speakers. And I was really excited about this because, you know, I do the Savage Sunday sermon. And I was one of the active people that were asking questions, taking notes. Well, I take notes anyway, guys. Like when I'm at one of these events, like you just see me nonstop writing. And one of the cool things I was talking about, Aaron Wagner and his corporate structure for Everbowl yesterday. And we were talking about kind of like the proprietary build out, stuff like that. And I'm just kind of like, you know, I was able to put two and two together. So literally, Pastor Keith had pretty much laid down, you know, if you look at the beginning, whether you look, and guys, you guys know my stance on this. Like, I don't give a fuck if you read the Bible. I mean, I want to talk about shit from Buddha. I'm going to talk about stuff from any kind of spiritual, even all the way down to during the event, we were talking about some of the stuff I learned from ninja culture, you know, directly from Stephen Hayes, who, if you guys don't know who that is, you guys might be laughing, but Stephen Hayes is literally, he's right here in Dayton. He's a friend of mine, and he's literally the last fucking ninja who created and was like literally in the 70s, went out and lived with the last ninja clan, powered by this guy named Hatsumi. And like, I was incredibly fascinated by their culture. And as a little kid, I wanted to get to know Steven. So ended up training with them, training with his staff, training with his black belts, working with him. He got involved in our charity events, all kinds of stuff like that. But I was able to learn a lot about their culture. So you never know, man. I might have a Savage Sermon Sunday specifically talking about ninja shit. Like, and it's actually some really cool stuff. People laugh at this day and age about, you know, ninja this, ninja that. Man, y'all don't have a fucking clue what these dudes had stood for. And some of the cool shit that I learned over there was awesome. So anyhow, back to this. I want to talk about first, the very first thing that, you know, Pastor Keith, and that's Elevate Life Church outside of Dallas. I think it might be over there in the Addison area or maybe in Plano or something like that. But generally it's close to Dallas. And one of the things he talked about, the very first thing was change and conflict equal growth. So a lot of us, we resist change and we resist conflict. And biblically, in a biblical sense, he laid it out. He said change and conflict. You know, you're going to have conflict, and then you're going to have to embrace change to see growth. And how many times do we see that in our businesses in general? You know, you get a staff in, you're working, and you know things are going good, but then you start to grow. What do you got to do? You got to step up to the staff. Usually it's going to be a little bit of conflict. There's going to be change, and then that's where you're going to find your growth. Or in some circumstance, I found people that had to go through massive amounts of fucking conflict to seek the change that they were looking for to actually get the growth. One of the things that Pastor Keith pretty much the entire time, other than answering some of my questions, he was talking about when God created the earth, exactly how that aligns itself with business. And again, I don't really care if you believe it or not. Just take a step back and look at the brilliance of how this was actually written, and you know what it actually says. And gives us, like, what type of guideline or what type of framework does it give us to work off of to build a business. And like, again, one of the cool things that I found while I was doing this, let me see if I can log into my iPhone too. I got notes here. One of the things that I found while I was, listening to many different business models is that once I got to Aaron Wagg's corporate structure, I was able to correlate it right back to what Pastor Keith was saying during that time. And one of the things that he started off with is that God, the very first thing that God said was, "Let there be light," right? So let there be light. Well, in business, what's the very first thing that we need? What God was saying was, let there be light so we can see and have vision. Okay. So the very first thing is to create the vision. How many of you guys even have a vision? I'm sure you had a vision to begin with in your business, but where the fuck is the vision now? You know what I mean? Like, you have to have, God said, let there be light so motherfuckers can see, so I can see. So I got to turn on the lights up in this bitch. I'm sure God's gonna forgive me for this because I'm speaking speaking his stuff. But that being saying, God said, we need some light up in this bitch so I can get this vision, so I can see everything, so I can create all this, right? So the very first thing God needed was everything lit up so he could see and create a vision. All right. And that how all businesses start, with a vision. The second thing God did was create the heavens and the seas. And when God did that, he was able to bring heaven to earth, which established a culture. Okay. God at that point was able to establish a culture. Um, whether you like it or not, like, regardless, if you look at just about every religious movement, it has like all of these key elements inside of it. That is the culture. What's the derivative of the word culture? Is the word cult. It's what, I don't care if people, like, I heard people literally talk about the universe this, the universe that, and that's okay. Like, I'm cool with that. But they literally were talking about it just like it was the same structure that we've seen in just about every religion. The craziest shit is that I'm linking like some of the stuff back biblically that's going into all the Eastern religions, and some of the things that they have believed in, like India and China and Japan. Like, all that shit is like linked together, and the deeper that you dive into it, you find out that that was the culture that was created in our earth. So God brought the heavens to our earth where the culture was already established, and created the culture that we are to follow by. Okay. So the next thing was day 3, when God separated everything and created the land. Okay. So God actually, on day 3, it said, God said, let the earth bring forth grass, herbs yielding seeds, fruit trees yielding fruit of his kind. Uh, so basically, God created all the trees, all the grass, all the fruit, all of that stuff, which gave us our structure. He created a structure. So before, there was only sea and there was only heavens, there was nothing structural there, right? So God was able to create the structure on that day. Now, how many times in a business we got to have a vision? And then we establish a culture, meaning when you start hiring people, you start creating your advertising, you start doing all these things, you're actually building a culture in your business. They say that the number one thing to actually hire people on is culture, and culture alone. I'll give you an example. Okay, so if you got a big group of people that are Trump supporters, and you go hire somebody who's super liberal and bring them in your company, you're going to have huge conflict. It's just not going to work. Somebody's going to fucking freak out, and vice versa. And vice versa, right? So, when you want to hire people based on culture. I've even went to the point where people will actually they'll do an interview on somebody, and then they'll go find their social media profile and they'll stalk them a little bit. They're trying to find out, is this person going to be a good fit for my business? They're going to fit in the culture. All right, so the next one is God created on day 4 the stars, the sun, and the moon. And God said, let there be light and firmament. The heavens divide the day from night, and let there be seasons and days and 24 hours, and all of this type of stuff that he created, which actually created order in the world. So, our 24 hours a day, our seasons that flowed, like all of this stuff was designed to create order. All right. So you've got to have order inside of your business, inside of your organization. So now we got vision, we've got culture, we've got structure, and we've got order. Okay. So now we've actually got something where the next thing, God created all the animals of the land and the sea. And what God specifically said on day 5, when God created the sea creatures and the birds, was that these were the moving creatures, is what he called them. The moving creatures is what God created. The ones that didn't find a habitat and just stay there. God created the moving creatures. And at that point, God created movement. So, what does your business need? Your business needs vision, structure, order, and now it needs movement, right? You've got to get that thing moving. You've got to get shit moving in your life and your business, right? Because anything that is stagnant dies. I'll give you an example. And one of my buddies, like really good friends, Craig, he had a pond with fish, and he had a ton of these fish, and him and his wife just love these fish. And so sad, but one day they come out, and like all the fish were belly up. And what they had found out is that there was no oxygen in that the water. Like, they thought that there was enough oxygen in there, but there just wasn't. So the water became like stagnant and couldn't create enough oxygen to take care of all of these beautiful fish they had in there. I mean, they had catfish, they had all this stuff. It was really sad for them because they would drive out there every evening. They would throw in fish food and they would feed the fish, and they had these certain ones they seen that would come up, and they knew the colors of them and all this stuff. It was sad. That was like their pets, right? But unfortunately, they had no idea that the pond was like starving of oxygen. So now Craig's got to figure out a way to get water out there because the pond's way up in the front of his house. And he's got to figure out a way to, either create something in the middle of the pond or some sort of stream that goes into it, because it literally was oxygen deprived. Same thing with, like, I talked yesterday about wealthy people, how they never want to let their money get stagnant, because if it sits there, it literally, like, your money, if it just sits there in the bank, you lose money just based on inflation alone, right? So you need movement to begin, to make sure nothing is stagnant. You need movement in your business. If you're sitting there, the phone's not ringing, right? So I think that's where marketing comes in and sales come in. That's the movement and the fuel of your business, right? And then the next thing that God created was the animals of his like, right? So all the four-legged creatures, and then specifically humans that were created in his own very own image, because God wanted a relationship. God wanted to have a relationship with humans. And like, again, whether you believe it or not, guys, that's how this was written. But what do you do in your business, right? So once you create that movement, okay, so you have a lot of people skip some of these steps. I just want to let you guys know, but some of these steps, if you didn't skip them, you'd be fucking building something like an empire, like, like a business that's real. And a lot of people skip a lot of these steps, and then they end up with, like, a high paying job or, something along them lines. But if you want to create something that moves on its own, like an ecosystem, like God created this world, he gave you a blueprint, like right at the beginning of the Bible, where he talked about how he created the earth. So here we go. And then what was the next thing? Was relationships, right? So what do we do in our business? We cultivate relationships. So once our business is out serving in the world, the very best thing that you can do, and I talk about this, is cultivating relationships. I think on just yesterday's podcast, I talked specifically about maintaining relationships is very powerful, or selling additional services to people that you already have relationships is so much easier. And it just is, right? So there it is. So you've got a business, right? So you got your vision, you establish your culture, you created structure. Now you have order. Now you have movement in that business. And then the sixth thing, you have relationships. Okay. You guys follow me here? You guys follow me here? I know that you are. I know you are. So I'm kind of scattered because I'm looking at notes, by the way, guys. So I didn't want to miss anything on this, right? I wanted to risk, a lot of stuff I do, guys, you got to realize is straight up off the cuff. But I wanted to risk kind of feeling a little bit choppy on this one, just specifically because I want to make sure I hit all the points. I would be really upset if I got off here. I'm like, oh, fuck, I missed one of them. So, and then the next one is God rested on the seventh day. How many of us face burnout Like, seriously, like, how many entrepreneurs do you know that just look around and they're burnt the fuck out, right? So, how important that is, and specifically, God said to spend that day with Him, right? I think people make the mistake of thinking that needs to happen in a church, but I think that's a day of renewing our spirit. That's a day of settling in. Like a lot of these other podcasts, I talk about, walking in faith, expecting, great things to happen, being thankful, getting into the mindset of gratitude, right? It's said, and I one of my mentors told me that when you get into the mindset of gratitude, you come the closest to what had created us, to God. And when you get into that mindset of gratitude, and I mean, even Jesus Christ himself said, I think like the apostles were starting to worry and shit about something, and Jesus looked up and he pointed at one of the birds and he said, look at these birds. Do they fear being fed? How much more does your father love you than the birds, right? So it's like you step into this thing, and I talk to my wife about this all the time because, by nature, she's much more of a worrier than me, and she is much more in the present, like operating more in present problems and stuff like that. And it's really hard for her to understand because this actually took me years to step into this. I mean, a long time ago, I used to be the same way. Like I would, start to worry about shit, and I would start to just my mind would start going into the fucking, the wrong direction. It would just start, I would start having what Zig Ziglar called stinking thinking, right? And my results would basically stem from that, because literally I was not in close harmony with what created us. The closer you can get to gratefulness, to gratitude, the closer you can live there, the closer you are to the thing that provides for us all. I always looked at it like this, you got a group and a family like sitting over in India, and they can barely like feed themselves, right? But a loaf of bread came their way that day, and their father like got some additional food or got some work and made some money. So the whole family's gathering around and they're having this meal, right? And they're so grateful, and they're laughing, and they say, oh my God, we've got this meal for the day. And it's just so great that we've been provided for, that God provided for us for this day. And they're in such close touch with the Creator because they're so grateful for what they specifically have on that day. And then you look sometimes in America, and it could be as simple as like, okay, I got a flat tire today, so it ruined my whole fucking life for a week. What if that flat tire happened because God seen that you were going to get into a wreck down the road and you were going to die, you were going to lose your life, right? I mean, there's so many things that we can actually be thankful for in just any situation. And a lot of the times, I would say for me, I'm probably up to like 95% of the time, when something seemingly bad happens to me, I always think of where it actually saved me. Like how did it save me from something, right? Or what is this thing teaching me? You know what I mean? Where is this issue, this problem, right? I get like a big old bill from the IRS, you know what I mean? What is this teaching me? How am I supposed to gain more structure so I don't have to worry about these big ass bills, hitting me, just randomly, you know what I'm saying? So I choose to be thankful for all of that in a fucking weird way. Okay. So that being said, guys, one of the coolest things, there was like a dude who came in here, and I don't want to forget this, right? Because it kind of falls in line with exactly what I was just talking about here. There was a guy that came in, and I actually worked on, or we worked on his car probably a month ago, and he was specifically the pastor of some sort of big church. I still haven't pinned it down what church it is, but he was trying to describe to me like where it was. And apparently it's somewhere on I-70, and they bought some land and all this kind of stuff. One of the cool things that we actually talked about, because we spent a good like 30-35 minutes just talking. And one of the things they were talking about is like, he something that he was preaching about during his sermons, whether it was the week before or the next week that he was going to be preaching about this, was Adam and Eve, whenever they were in the Garden of Eden and they ate the forbidden fruit, and God came to find them hiding. And when God went to them, they were hiding, right? And God said, what are you, Adam and Eve, what's going on? Why are you hiding back there, right? And they were trying to cover their body and all this kind of stuff. And they said, well, we're naked. We have to hide. We're naked, right? And God specifically looked at them and said, who told you that? Right? So essentially, where that brings us full circle is that these fears, these frustrations are not coming from God. Now, where they're coming from, whether you want to call it the devil, whether you want to call it Zig Ziglar stinking thinking, whether you want to call it negativity, whether you want to call it karma, I don't give a shit where you want to call it. That type of thinking is not natural in anything, right? So I look at my little dog out here. We are literally the only creature that will punish ourselves over and over and over and over again. I mean, this could be some shit that we have in our past from like 20, 30 years ago. Like no other creature like lives so much in the past, where depression, like the past is slow depression, Some people live inside of that depression, and then other people live with anxiety, always like worrying about the future. My little dog that I have out here is living in the moment, is living in the present, is with us presently all the time. And that's one of the beautiful things about dogs specifically, is because they will bring you into the present with them. So we get to experience where life is truly lived in the present moment, like where we're at right fucking now. So when God looked at Adam and Eve and said, who told you that? That thought didn't come from them. That thought came from the fucking curse that we're dealing with today. Again, whether you believe it or not, most people live in a living hell in this world. Why other creatures are just being their authentic self. Look, you can't get mad at a fucking lion for killing a gazelle. You just can't. You can't get mad at a lion for tackling and killing a zebra. You can't get mad at a shark for eating a fish. You can't get mad at a bear for even attacking a human. You can't. Because simply they're just doing what they were meant to do. There's no judgment upon themselves. There's no punishment. They don't self-inflict punishment on themselves like we do. So take a step back and say, man, like why are these thoughts even here? So a book that I read a while back, for anybody who's not into the Bible or anything like that, and like I read into so much different shit, and it's called The Four Agreements. It really, really illustrates what we're talking about here as well. So if you don't dig the Bible and you can't get much out of that, that's cool with me. You're still my dude. You're still my friend, right? Because, we're gathered around the subject, the topic, marketing. I'm going to talk about some shit that you're deeply interested in, 6 days out of the week, possibly 7 if I switch the topic up a little bit and go a little bit deeper into some of the other areas of the spiritual realm. There's shit. I mean, there's even this fucking energy study that I'm doing right now that's just incredible. Guy named Mike Kaminsky, and I don't know what he believes. He doesn't talk about Christianity or whatever, but I know he's a fucking amazing human. And that's truly all that I need. So that's all I need to know about him. All right, guys. So anyhow, I'll go ahead and end this, right? And I'll end this with conflict and change equals growth. All right, everybody. I appreciate you. And as usual, I'll see you in the next one.